And I realized that if I found a way to get them to come listen to me talk for 2 hours about how to make their wedding fun, just like doing a sales meeting one-on-one, I'd probably do pretty good. So I offered tickets to a seminar that I called Planning the Perfect Wedding Reception. 11 couples showed up, and 2 months later, I'd booked 9 out of those 11 at about $1,200 apiece. So it was a very worthwhile venture. And I took the notes from that seminar, condensed it into a little booklet, which I would then give to my clients as a way of showing them how organized my thinking was on making their day fun and some of the ideas I had that they weren't finding anywhere else. And I'd go to the bookstores, and I kept noticing that nobody at all was talking about the information that was in my booklet. None of the magazines, none of the books. In fact, when they talked about my job, they called me music. And I can give them all the music they need on my iPhone now. You know, they can have my entire dance catalog right there, but that's not going to make their day great. That's not going to help them make it personal and unique and memorable. And so I started getting this desire to write a book about the fun side of weddings. Since nobody had covered it, I figured, why not me? And I started writing. I didn't really have a title. And then in 2006, in June, I took a class taught by Dan Poynter, Poynter. He's got a great class at the Learning Annex on writing and producing your own book. And after taking that class, I got really excited about finally finishing this project once and for all. And within about 6 months, I had a completed copy of the book. I was taking it to the printers, and I was taking it to the Mobile Beat Show to sell it and premiere it for the first time. And that was the self-published edition you held up earlier.
Absolutely, right here. So I'm lucky. I have it. You don't. Not only that, but if you do have it, does yours have a signed copy? Huh? I've got Peter's signed copy. Huh? So, but the big thing here now is you got published. How exciting was that for you?
Yeah, I can't even begin to tell you how exciting it is. I was able to move over 11,000 copies of the self-published edition you're holding. That was done in a soft cover, black and white, 212 pages. That one had 9 couple profile pages with real wedding receptions. It had 140 creative ideas to make a wedding more fun, and it had been put together by myself with the help of some of my friends. And so it was a good effort, and to sell 11,000 copies was huge, and we used that to get the attention of publishers. And now we have a publisher backing us, and my book will now be coming out in bookstores everywhere next Tuesday, October 12th, and it's hardback with a paper cover. It is full color inside. It is 240 pages now. It now has 22 couple profile pages. It went from 140 creative ideas to 230. We've added over 90. And it's been completely rewritten and revised. It's a completely updated book, and I couldn't be prouder of it. It looks amazing.
So having somebody take what you've written in your own creativity and control, turning it over to a publisher, how much did they put this thing underneath the chopping block and cut it to pieces before they got to where they are today?
You know what? It was a compromise. There were pieces they wanted to cut completely that I didn't agree with, but we finally agreed to. There were places where they wanted to cut, and I said no way, and I gave my reasons why, and they understood me. So there was a lot of give and take to it. It was very much a dialogue, and we were working together to create the right result. The new version of the book doesn't have the same Chapter 5. Chapter 5 has been condensed in the end of Chapter 4. The new book has a new title for Chapter 2. Instead of being all about the budget in general, it's more focused on the budget related to entertainment, which I think entertainers will love. The title is now Prioritizing the Entertainment in Your Budget. So there's been some changes in that regard. The information in Chapter 7, which is now Chapter 6, about the entertainment has been reduced to bands, DJs, and Master of Ceremonies. There's a half a page on wedding entertainment directors in there. There's a full page on ministers. There's a full page on iPods. But we focus very much on what bands, DJs, and masters of ceremonies can offer to the reception and give the bride some really great detailed information to help her make the best choice possible.
And it's interesting that you bring up iPod, and it's actually in your book because there are humorous videos, and I say humorous not in a good way, humorous videos that are out there on the web that show a speaker system that has an iPod dock on the top of it with a single plug-in microphone sitting on a chair next to a dance floor in the middle of a field, and that's their entertainment for their biggest event of their year. And arguably, there are 3 big events that happen in a person's life. One of them is getting married, the other one's having children, and the other one's buying a home. And they've chopped up one of these 3 important events, in my opinion, to a speaker system with no real true value other than it makes noise.
Yeah, but there's a reason why they did that, and it goes back to why I wrote my book. All the magazines and books that are out there are currently telling them that they need music. They're not educating them about the need for entertainment or a master of ceremonies or a very personally engaging, smooth-flowing event. And so if they think they need music, why not use an iPod? It makes sense until you see the downside. And there's been lots of articles out there that promote how cheap it is to use an iPod, which they're absolutely correct about. And if you're doing a cocktail hour reception with no special events and no special announcements, then by all means, go ahead and use an iPod. But if you want a reception that's going to flow smoothly, have lots of personalized moments, and a master of ceremonies who knows how to move you from one thing to the next, an iPod won't cut it. It just won't. And brides weren't being told that until I documented some news stories in my book that documented very clearly that it does have a dark side. You can save some money, but you might not get the results you want on the big day.
Right. Hey, Pete, question for you.
Sure.
Your book, is it primarily directed at brides, or is it also directed at folks who are in the entertainment industry who want to know how to provide a better service to the bride?
That's a good question. The book has been written to the bride and groom who are planning their own wedding reception. But I've seen a secondary market not only to wedding entertainers, but to all wedding vendors who want to learn how to make the day more fun for the bride and learn about some of the most creative ideas that are coming out now for making weddings more fun. So I've seen a lot of entertainers who are buying it for that reason, even though they're not the primary target audience of the book. And I've even heard from some entertainers that they'd much rather read the book now than have a bride come up to them during the planning process and say, hey, can we do this idea in this book? And they go, what's that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, because what you're doing here, and since you did see that unique niche that, there was no documentation, there was nothing written about this particular subject, basically you have made yourself the Julia Child of wedding planning at this point, because you've just written The Joy of Cooking. It may become one of those books that's constantly referred to for years to come.
I really hope that's the case, and it's one of the reasons why I've asked people to refer to me as the fun wedding guy, because that's my moniker from now on.
Now, speaking of being the fun wedding guy and the book, you've got a very short amount of time to get to one of your aspirations in life, and that's to be on the Oprah show.
That's correct.
Have you even been approached by any major? I know you've been on television stations across the nation. The interviews have been fantastic during the first run of your book. How is this published version getting you some more exposure to getting more into a national or an international audience for this medium? Because as you said, the wedding magazines and the publications that are out on your newsstand, you go out there and you read them, and even still to this day, you and I are in this industry, you pick them up, you read them, and you're immediately disappointed because they wrap the event around food, pictures, and flowers.
Right.
And really those just make up the event. They don't become the event, right?
Well, those contribute to the image of a wedding day, which is very easy to show to brides, but what they're not telling brides is what the experience is going to be like. You can build the most amazing image for a wedding celebration and still have a celebration that's boring as all get out because it looks beautiful, but they didn't plan for the fun. So to answer your question, I haven't been approached by anybody nationally yet, but we do expect that to happen when the book launches between now and January. The publisher has already made arrangements with bookstores to do a heavy push on the book in January. I'll be on the road in January, February, and probably most of March promoting the book all over the country at bridal shows to wedding vendor groups, doing book signings at bookstores, and doing as many TV interviews as I can get my hands on. I have connections to some of the national groups that we're trying to get into, including The View and The Today Show, and we are working the Oprah angle very hard. We've got several sources that are getting the book in the hands of her producers as well as getting it directly to her. I have a friend who was able to hand deliver one to Preston Bailey, who's on a first-name basis with Oprah. And next month I'll be in the Bahamas speaking at a conference, and the keynote speaker is Colin Cowie. And I'm making arrangements right now to meet with him and give him a signed copy of the book in person and ask him if he'd mind letting Oprah know about my book as well. So we're working every angle we can. It is still very much a goal for me because I couldn't think of a better platform to get brides' attention and wake them up to how important the entertainment can be to their day than to be sitting on her couch explaining some of the ideas and showing video of people literally laughing and maybe even crying at weddings because of some of the moments that we've helped those brides and grooms create.
Yeah, and one of those emotional parts of a wedding that I think that you've mastered down, and this really takes an art of training and skill and trials and errors to get where you are today, and that is the grand entrance. And can you tell us a little bit about that grand entrance, how you formulate that, what you call the love story behind all of this? So can you kind of give us kind of a roundabout of this?
Sure. Yeah, where it all started for me was I used to think that introducing the wedding party meant that you got all their names, you made sure you knew how to pronounce them correctly, you put on some fun music, and you introduced the wedding party by saying all their names, and then you played the Rocky theme when the bride and groom came in. That was what I was taught. I had a bride and groom at a wedding about 12 years ago who handed me a sheet that had short little biographical statements for every person in the wedding party. They asked me to read them as I was introducing each person. And as I was reading them, I thought, you know what, this is fantastic because most of those guests don't know who those people are to the bride and groom. And as I read it, I also realized that if I'd had some input on it, we could have added some humor or maybe even a sound effect. And so I started working with my business partner, James Loram, on developing sound effects and trying to find ways to add a little bit more personality to the grand entrance. And the way it's developed today has actually gotten to a point where I actually call it roasting the wedding party. I don't always roast them, but that's kind of the moniker we've given it because so many of my clients in their feedback forms have said that was their favorite moment when I roasted the wedding party when we introduced them. And so I gather information from the bride and groom about who those people are to them, how long they've known them, what they do for a living, what their hobbies are, if they're married, single, dating, who the other people in their lives are, and a fun, embarrassing story about them. And if whatever piece of the puzzle fits best is what we present. And then if it fits, we'll work in a sound clip from a movie or a song clip from a song or even a sound effect. You can see some examples of this. We've just got a few of them up now, but we're planning on loading more soon on my website, roastmyweddingparty.com. You can see some examples of this being done. And the concept behind it is to introduce the wedding party in a way that's very personalized, very fun, and a very high-quality production that causes the guest to sit up and say, wait a second, this isn't like anything I've ever seen before. And when I can get the guests thinking that way from the beginning, I literally own that room for the bride and groom the rest of the night. Anything I need them to do for the bride and groom the rest of the night, the guests are ready to do because they perceive this as being a completely different celebration than any they've ever been a part of before.
Absolutely. And one of the things I learned for my business in the entertainment industry, Scotty D Entertainment, was that when you and I originally met many years ago, we were talking about changing up some of what would be a 2 or 3 second experience for the brides and grooms guests, and that's the first dance and all of the traditional dances. And you helped me create the special messages portion, at least teaching me how to do this, where by which interviewing the bride and groom independently from each other, they don't know what each other is talking about, going back and mixing that into the first dance. So neither one of them knows what's happening. As the song is progressing, their messages to each other are coming out. And what I found with that was that what would be a normal 30-second wow factor when you're announcing, the first dance and everybody starts to go back to looking at their watches, leaning over the chair, talking to their buddy about going fishing over the weekend, or the girls talking about whatever. Now they're entrenched into that moment, and that's what I think is really what creating the best wedding reception ever is all about, is taking what would be traditional, I won't call them boring, but just not very thought after portions of the event, and making them what they should be, and that's unique.
Right, absolutely. I have an example that I have on my YouTube channel for my book. If you go to youtube.com/TBWRE, that's the initials of my book, you can see a video there called A Mother-Son Dance to Remember. And it's about a groom who wanted to dance with his mom to You Are My Sunshine. And the reason he chose that particular song was his mom had taught him to sing it when he was a kid. But what he didn't know was his mom contacted me a week before the wedding with a tape cassette and asked me if I could play it before the song to help everybody connect the dots. And what was on the tape cassette was him at 3 years old singing that song.
Oh, my goodness.
So I surprised her and him and everybody else, because instead of playing the tape beforehand, I took him singing a cappella and mixed it into the musical bridge of the song. And in the middle of them dancing to the song, they both suddenly heard his little boy voice singing along, right on key, right on mark with the song. It took 4.5 hours to edit, but my God, it was a 2.5 minute mother-son dance that people there will never forget. and everybody there had tears in their eyes, and it's like, you look at that and you go, I can't do that every time.